The chamber was designed to feel merciful, which was how the alien officer justified it to himself. Smooth alloy walls reflected soft blue light, temperature calibrated to the human's fragile biology, gravity tuned to prevent joint damage. Mercy, however, was a matter of intent, and his intent was extraction. The human sat restrained in a gravity cradle, dark hair matted with sweat, eyes bloodshot but focused, as if the room itself were merely weather to be endured. Officer Karzeth observed from across the chamber. His mantle plates flared in mild irritation. The prisoner's file floated in his peripheral vision. Sergeant Elias Ward, Terran Expeditionary Force, Reconnaissance Detachment. Nothing remarkable. A junior, non-commissioned officer captured during a border misunderstanding. Karzeth had conducted hundreds of interrogations across lesser species, and humans, for all their noise, were biologically unexceptional. Pain thresholds mapped cleanly. Responses were predictable. Your unit's patrol routes, Karzeth said, voice translated into clipped, neutral tones. You're listening post-frequencies. This will end quickly if you cooperate. Ward swallowed. His wrists trembled against the field restraints, not from fear, but from exhaustion. I've already told you, he said hoarsely. I don't know. The officer adjusted a control with delicate precision. Neural feedback spiked, calibrated just below permanent damage. Ward gasped, spine arching, teeth clenched hard enough to crack. Karzeth watched the biometric readouts with professional detachment, noting stress markers, cortisol levels, microfractures forming where bone met force. The human did not scream. That was mildly disappointing. Hours passed, measured only by data. When the session ended, Ward sagged, breathing shallow but steady. Karzeth felt a flicker of satisfaction. Compliance was not immediate, but degradation was cumulative. Tomorrow would be easier. What followed, however, was not tomorrow. It was an interruption. A priority signal chimed through Karzeth's implant, marked with diplomatic glyphs. He reviewed it with annoyance that curdled into amusement. Earth had lodged a formal protest. Language dense with outrage, accusations of unlawful detention, demands for inspection rights. It was all precisely within expectation. Humans complained loudly, then adapted quietly. The message concluded with assurances of peaceful intent and faith in galactic process. Karzeth dismissed it with a flex of thought. The law was clear. Border enforcement fell under his authority, and humans had not yet earned parity. The protest would be archived, debated, and forgotten. Still, as procedure demanded, he initiated a cross-reference. Earth's response packet included an annex, encrypted but indexed. Karzeth accessed the Galactic Registry, querying for any special deployments, retaliatory authorizations, or mobilization flags associated with the Terran forces. The system responded instantly. No active operations, no covert actions, no extraordinary measures. The annex, however, was empty, not redacted, not restricted, empty, as if the data had never existed. Karzeth frowned, running the query again, widening parameters, checking for corruption. The result remained unchanged. A null return where something should have been. He glanced back at the human, unconscious but alive, chest rising stubbornly. For the first time since the interrogation began, unease crept into Karzeth's thoughts. Humans were inefficient, emotional, prone to spectacle. If they intended retaliation, it would be visible, loud, and logged. This was neither. Karzeth straightened, dismissing the feeling as fatigue. Databases did not lie. They reflected reality. And reality, according to every system that mattered, said Earth had done nothing at all. He ordered the chamber secured and the prisoner monitored, protocol over instinct. Yet as the lights dimmed, the officer lingered, unsettled by the silence of the record. Somewhere between procedure and absence, a question pressed at him, unwelcome and unanswerable, waiting for an answer that would not announce itself openly. Snow whipped across the frozen ridges as Ghost stood beside the smoldering wreck of the downed alien craft, his breath fogging inside the mask. The extraction team had already left, carrying what little remained of Sergeant Hale. a man Ghost had trained, fought beside, and now barely recognized after the interrogation. What the alien officer had done to him wasn't just torture. It was erasure. Neural extraction, the text called it. Memories burned out like corrupted files. Ghost stared into the abyss between the mountains, the silence pressing down like guilt made physical. Somewhere out there, the alien who did this was still breathing. The briefing 2 days earlier replayed in his mind. Command had been cold, clinical, precise, a containment operation for a downcraft near the Khyber Ridge. But when Ghost team arrived, they found more than debris. They found evidence of deliberate experimentation. Human captives wired into alien consoles, their neural patterns mapped and copied. Hale had been one of them. The officer responsible was logged as Entity 47A. That designation burned behind Ghost's mask like a curse. Now, Command had declared the mission classified beyond Omega clearance. Files sealed. Witnesses debriefed and reassigned. But Ghost wasn't on the roster anymore. He's not in the database, they'd said when he tried to access the case. That phrase haunted him. It meant someone had scrubbed him clean, his service record, his identity, his past. Officially, he didn't exist. Unofficially, he was free to do what Command wouldn't. He trekked deeper into the mountains, his HUD flickering with static interference. The alien tech had infected Earth's surveillance grid. He could feel it. The air shimmered faintly, distortions like heat mirages bending light. Ghost checked his rifle, a custom rail variant scavenged from Black Ops caches. The stock still bore Hale's unit tag, Wolf 09. He carried it as a promise. A low hum rolled through the valley, mechanical and wrong. Ghost crouched, scanning the slope ahead. A drone, sleek, triangular, and organic in motion, glided over the ridge, its sensor arrays glowing a cold violet. Alien reconnaissance. He powered down his systems and pressed into the snow, every heartbeat deliberate. The drone paused, scanning, its hum deepening. Then it drifted away, leaving a faint trail of ionized air. Ghost exhaled, then rose. The aliens weren't retreating. They were hunting survivors. Hours later, he reached the crash site's second coordinate, an ice cavern partially sealed by rock. Inside, bioluminescent residue pulsed on the walls. Alien tech bleeding into Earth's geology. Ghost activated his wrist recorder, whispering, Echo 9, visual on potential command module remains. Silence answered. Command had cut him off completely. He stepped deeper. The cavern's core opened into a metallic chamber, smooth and alien in its geometry. At the center stood a stasis pod, cracked open, leaking pale vapor. A humanoid figure lay against the wall, armored in plates of dark silver, helm fractured to reveal skin like glass over circuitry. The alien officer, still alive barely. Ghost raised his rifle, fingers steady on the trigger. The creature stirred, its voice a fractured modulation of languages. Human, you were erased. Ghost hesitated, rage and curiosity colliding. The officer's hand twitched toward a console, and Ghost fired. Once, twice, the round sparking against the alien's chest. It slumped, breathing shallowly. Then a pulse of light erupted from the console, scanning him from head to toe. His visor flashed warnings. DNA lock breach, neural intrusion detected. Ghost ripped off the mask, gasping, but it was too late. The alien's dying whisper filled the cavern. Now you are off the record. Outside, the mountains groaned under a rising storm. Ghost staggered out into the snow, the phrase echoing in his mind. Off the record, not in the database. And somewhere in his skull, something had changed. Something was awake. Ghost woke to cold and motion, dragged back into awareness by the steady crunch of boots on snow. His vision swam as figures moved above him, outlines distorted by the storm and the damage inside his skull. He tried to move and failed, limbs sluggish, nerves misfiring. Voices cut through the wind, clipped and unfamiliar, speaking in a language his mind should not have understood, yet did. He is compromised, one said. The imprint took. Hands turned him over with professional efficiency. Restraints snapped into place, not crude, but precise, calibrated to human musculature. Ghost forced himself to breathe evenly, cataloging sensations the way training demanded. Pain flared behind his eyes, sharp and structured, as if something were sorting through his thoughts, tagging memories like files. They carried him into the alien transport without ceremony. Inside, the air was warm and antiseptic, humming with systems that reacted to his presence. A translucent field pinned him upright against the bulkhead. Across from him stood Officer Karzeth. The alien looked different up close. Less imposing, more fragile, mantle plates dulled, one limb supported by a brace of living metal. His eyes fixed on Ghost with something that was no longer arrogance, but calculation strained by uncertainty. "You should not be functional," Karzeth said. "The transfer was incomplete, but sufficient to erase you." Ghost laughed, a dry sound that tasted like blood. "You guys really hate paperwork." Karzeth ignored the remark. "Your species reacts unpredictably to data excision. Identity collapse is typical. You remain cohesive." Ghost met his gaze. "You tortured one of mine." A pause followed. "Not for translation, for consideration." "He was a resource," Karzeth replied. "Your protest implied restraint. Your reality contradicts it. That's because you're looking in the wrong place." Karzeth gestured, and the field constricted, pressure building around Ghost's chest. The pain was immediate, but manageable. What followed was worse. Images surfaced unbidden. Hale on a firing range, Hale laughing over bad coffee, Hale screaming in a room like this one. Ghost felt the alien's presence probing, attempting to map emotional anchors to find leverage. Instead, it found doors already open. Ghost focused, not on resistance but acceptance. The thing the alien had woken inside him responded, knitting pain into clarity. He saw the ship's layout in his mind, pathways glowing like veins. He felt the Engine's pulse, the rhythm of a system that assumed no threat from something unlisted. Karzeth recoiled slightly. "You are not empty," he said, almost to himself. "No," Ghost agreed. "I'm unaccounted for." The lights flickered. Somewhere deep in the vessel, alarms tried and failed to escalate beyond baseline tolerance. Ghost flexed against the field, and this time it gave just enough. He slammed his head forward, visor cracking against Karzeth's chest. The alien staggered back, stunned more by impossibility than impact. Ghost tore free, landing hard but upright. He moved before thought could slow him, guided by the map burning behind his eyes. He disarmed a guard, broke another's neck with practiced brutality, and kept moving. The ship resisted in half-hearted ways, systems recalibrating around an error they could not classify. Karzeth watched him retreat down the corridor, fear finally unmasked. He tried to log the incident, to flag an emergency, to name the threat. The console rejected every command. Ghost reached the airlock and paused, breathing hard. He looked back once, not at Karzeth, but the ship itself, memorizing its flaws. Then he stepped into the storm. Behind him, the vessel's systems reset, recording nothing. Somewhere in the galactic archives, the incident never occurred. And Ghost, moving through the snow with borrowed silence and sharpened purpose, understood fully what Earth had unleashed. Not a weapon, a correction. The inquiry convened 3 cycles later, framed as routine damage assessment following a border incident. Officer Karzeth stood before the tribunal dais, mantle plates rigid, posture exact, projecting compliance while suppressing the tremor that had not left him since the snow. The chamber was crowded with observers, analysts, and record keepers, all confident that the matter would resolve cleanly. Humans protested. Systems verified. Order endured. That was how these things worked. The lead adjudicator spoke without looking at him. "You report unauthorized intrusion, loss of personnel, and systemic failure aboard your vessel." "Yes," Karzeth replied, "by a single human operative." The adjudicator gestured, and the archive core pulsed. "We find no corroboration, no deployment records, no energy signatures consistent with Terran assets. Your account conflicts with every verified dataset." Karzeth's mandibles tightened. "Then your datasets are incomplete." A murmur rippled through the chamber. The adjudicator finally met his gaze. Explain. Karzeth hesitated, a fatal pause. He had rehearsed this, stripped the experience of fear, framed it in logic, but the memory resisted compression. The human was not listed, he said. He did not exist within the registry. Our systems could not identify, track, or record him. He acted without triggering escalation thresholds. When he departed, all evidence resolved to baseline. Silence followed, heavy and skeptical. That is not an explanation, the adjudicator said. It is an assertion of failure. Karzeth lowered his head, an admission more dangerous than defiance. Then record this as my failure. But understand what that implies. The inquiry recessed shortly after. Official findings cited equipment malfunction, procedural error, and officer misconduct. Karzeth was relieved of command, reassigned to a peripheral post where nothing important ever happened. His career ended quietly, without disgrace or vindication. Yet the phrase he had spoken spread anyway, passed between analysts in private channels, then whispered beyond them. Not listed, not recorded, not there. On Earth, the return of Sergeant Ward was handled with equal restraint. A medical evacuation under diplomatic cover, a sealed hospital wing, a family informed that survival was a miracle best left unexplored. Ward remembered pain, fragments of light, a voice that never gave its name. He also remembered waking whole, despite what had been taken from him. When asked how, he had no answer. Only gratitude. Ghost watched none of it. He moved through places that never noticed him, following currents of conflict like weather. The imprint in his mind faded into something quieter, less intrusive, but its gifts remained. Systems bent around his absence. Surveillance slid past him. When he slept, he dreamed without faces, without names, and woke ready. No orders reached him. None needed to. He knew where to go because the pattern was always the same. Where humans were reduced to resources, where records justified cruelty, where power relied on the assumption that retaliation must be visible to be real. In one such place, far from the mountains and the snow, an alien commander reviewed a report and frowned. The humans filed no response, she said. Her aide nodded. No mobilization detected. No threats issued. She considered this, unease stirring. Then why do our outposts keep failing inspections we never authorized? The aide searched the database, then searched again. I don't know, he admitted. There's nothing logged. Far away, Ghost paused at the edge of another storm, adjusting the rifle on his shoulder. He thought of Hale, of Ward, of the lie that said mercy required permission. Then he stepped forward, vanishing between moments, leaving behind nothing that could be proven. The galaxy would learn, slowly, reluctantly, that humanity's strength was not in what it announced, but in what it refused to record.